All right. Hello again, adventures, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is Daily Vlog 2025, number 43. And today, we are going to talk about the disabled tax. Disabled tax, I don't remember that when I was learning about all those different tax things that you keep talking about. We were talking about opening a business or turning my hobby into a business. Is something that's covered under, the FUTA tax or anything like that? No. Uh, some background. There is a story that's been making headlines recently about a rapper who weighs, my understanding, do not quote me on this, but what has been said in other coverage of it is this rapper weighs in the neighborhood of 500 pounds. So definitely would qualify for the title of morbidly obese. And they live in Detroit, or they live in Michigan, I believe. And they called an Uber, and the car that showed up was a tiny little car. Not the smallest car I've ever seen. Like, it wasn't like a little two-door, coupe showed up. It was a four-door car. But it was still a very small car. It looked like a relatively old car. And the Uber driver told her, "Yeah, I can't do this." And she got extremely upset because she felt that there's no. He kept saying, "You can't fit in my car." And she's like, "Yes, I can. Yes, I can." He's like, "No, you have to call a different Uber. Maybe call Uber XL." If anyone doesn't know, there is a version of Uber that you can call where you are guaranteed to get like an SUV or a bigger car, and it's called Uber XL, and it's more expensive because those cars, first of all, they're bigger. They get worse gas mileage. It's technically a premium service. And long story short, she didn't get the Uber ride from that car. And now she's suing Uber. I think it's Uber. It's one of the, or it might have been Lyft. I don't know. Anyway, it's one of the rideshare apps. So again, if I get it wrong, I apologize. It's not my intent. There's just a lot of different ones, and that's not kind of the purpose of this video to talk about the lawsuit itself. Anyway, she decided to sue the company, which, from the comments I've read, apparently fired that particular driver, which, if you want to get into the business law of how that's legal and how that works, we can talk about that in a different video. Suffice it to say, anyone that's claiming wrongful termination doesn't quite understand how business law works, especially for independent contractors. So this person is suing, and a lot of the people that are against the lawsuit keep bringing up the same kind of tired arguments about obesity in general. Because I believe it was Michigan recently, and by recently I mean within the past like year-ish, passed a law expanding the protections against discrimination to your weight. And if anyone doesn't understand exactly what that means, something that gets misquoted a lot is the idea of we have the right to refuse service for any reason. If you're a private business, you have the right to refuse service to anyone for any reason. That's not true. Yes, as a private business owner, you are not required to do business with everybody in the world. You actually do have the right to refuse service. But there is a caveat. There is a carve-out to protect civil rights and civil liberties. You have the right to refuse service unless your reason for refusing service is based on a protected class. So, you have the right to refuse service to an annoying woman that won't shut up. You do not have a right to refuse service because she is a woman. Your sex and gender are protected classes. So you are not allowed to say, I don't serve women in my bar. You are allowed to say, I don't serve annoying women that won't shut up. That is not protected. Being an asshole is not a protected class. Protected classes in and of themselves, there are federally protected classes defined by the Civil Rights Act of 1964, I want to say. And those are things, race, religion, gender. I believe it's, I don't remember if they actually listed as gender or sex. But when it was written, and how it's been interpreted thus far, it does not cover gender identity, but it does cover biological sex. So race, religion, sex. I can't remember the other ones that were specifically in that, but the two big ones for a long time were race and sex, because there was a lot of discrimination based on race, and there was a lot of discrimination based on sex. So since then, there have been expansions to what is considered a protected class. From the federal level, it hasn't been expanded that much. I believe, I may not be 100% right on this. This may be just a state thing that most states have adopted, but I believe sexual orientation is considered a protected class now. There are some states that are either currently attempting to add in gender identity or have already added it in. Trying to think if there's any other ones. The other, like, really, really big one that didn't happen until the 90s was with the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Disability became a protected class. Now, I don't know if it was a protected class before that, but up until 1990, when the Americans with Disabilities Act, even if it was a protected class, it wasn't protected. And the reason behind that was you didn't technically have to say, hey, we don't want disabled people in here. You just had to make it so they couldn't get in. Something as simple as not having ramps to lead into your business meant that somebody with a mobility disability couldn't get into your business. And so, well, yes, it might have been a protected class where you couldn't outright say, hey, I don't like cripples. There was really no way to stop this kind of soft discrimination of, well, I'm just going to make it so you can't come into my business. Which isn't something that you can do for other protected classes. You can't create, a lock that requires you to have a penis in order to get into your bar to make sure that women can't get in. That's not a thing. It's not possible. You can't, you can't make it so that the only way that you can get in is if you have a certain skin color. There's no physical barrier you can create that would be able to discriminate in the same way you can discriminate against disabled people. And so, the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed, which made it illegal for businesses to discriminate against disabled people simply by making it so that they couldn't get in. As not only someone who is disabled, but someone who grew up with a disabled family member, which is going to become more important as we continue talking about this. This was a huge thing. Yes, this is knees. Or not. Every single time. So, This is a huge thing because there were a lot of people with disabilities that the only way they could exist in the world was either they had to have some kind of caregiver for things like, well, I need to go shopping, but I can't physically get into the store, so I have to have someone else go do my grocery shopping for me. That's a kind of an egregious example, but it's a thing that really happened. The ADA made it so that disabled people could actually exist in the world without having what we refer to as the disabled tax. What the disabled tax is there are a lot of things that make it so that disabled people can interact in ways that non-disabled people or able-bodied people never have to think about. Things like grabbers, those little kind of machines where it's like a long stick and it's got like a button over here and it's got like a jun. If you have some kind of mobility disorder, more likely than not, picking up stuff off the ground is very difficult for you. Because mobility disorders in general make contorting your body and changing its position very difficult. So those little grabber things are really nice to be able to like pick up your keys off the floor, pick up packages that have been left for you, things like that. They're remarkably useful. They cost money. So to do something that an able-bodied person can do just normally without having to change their life in any way, shape, or form, we have to pay extra money to do. It's called, we refer to it as the disabled tax because it is everywhere. If you have something like this, I have a tremor in my dominant hand. There are a lot of devices that are designed specifically to help people with motor disorders like tremors and other things like that be able to still interact normally. Depending on how specialized your disability is and how rare it is, they get very expensive. So simply to exist in the world, we have to pay extra money. And that's when we get into this idea of someone overweight basically being required to pay for a premium service to get a car that can actually handle their weight. And the argument keeps coming back to the idea of fat people aren't disabled. They just need to take the fucking fork out of their mouth. It's not how it works, first of all. And second of all, the obesity itself is not technically the disability. Morbid obesity, which I am currently obese. I think I was within like a pound of being morbidly obese for a while. Being obese is not technically a disability in itself. I don't know legally what the definitions are, but obesity in and of itself is generally not the quote-unquote disability. However, obesity causes a lot of other problems. And the first thing that generally happens when you start dealing with obesity, and I dealt with it myself, is you start having mobility issues, specifically in your knees and in your hips. Your body, whether you want to, this is not the time for a debate on intelligent design versus evolution. However you want to imagine that the human body came to be, it is remarkably ingeniously designed. And your legs fulfill a remarkably intricate purpose. The fact that human beings cannot just get from point A to point B using only two weird hinged, flesh things with bones in them is really weird and interesting. And if you look at a lot of other animals, they don't walk like we do. Like even bipedal animals like apes and monkeys and things like that generally still use their arms for support as they move around. We don't. Not only can we walk, we can dance, we can jump around, and we can do all these amazing things. It's a really, really impressive thing. And in order for your legs to do that, they have all this stuff built into them to do things like absorb shock. When you jump and stuff like that, all of your cartilage in your knees, in your ankles, in your toes, everywhere, all of those different places where cartilage exists, they act as shock absorbers. They also help to kind of lubricate those joints to make sure that they move correctly. Well, they have a limit. And the more weight and pressure you put on them, the less well they work. So in general, once you get to the point of being morbidly obese, you have bare minimum joint damage. And the fact that you're carrying so much more weight, and the weight itself can be distributed in very, very bizarre ways that your body just really wasn't designed to work. It can make getting around very, very difficult. So again, I'm not 100% certain about whether or not obesity in and of itself is considered a disability. It's been a long time since I've studied that aspect of disability law. Mobility issues are 100% covered by the ADA. So a lot of times the reason that people that are morbidly obese need accommodations are because they have additional disabilities on top of their obesity. Now, were those mobility issues the reason that this either Lyft or Uber, whatever it was, this driver, I'm starting to think more and more that it was Lyft and not Uber, but I genuinely cannot remember. This driver told this woman that she couldn't get into his car. No, he was entirely worried about the fact that she was a nearly 500 pound person that was going to cause damage to his car, because cars can carry a decent amount of weight, but they're designed to have it distributed in certain ways, like a really good way to kind of counter that idea. Well, I can't handle 600 pounds. Well, have you ever taken 3 full-grown men in your car before? Most men weigh in the neighborhood of 180 to 220 pounds. Like, that's average rate for an adult male. So 3 of those guys are going to be more than 500 pounds. So the idea that your car cannot handle an additional 500 pounds doesn't really hold water. However, weight distribution is a thing. The idea of 3 fully grown adult males sitting on one side of your car for an extended amount of time, that is not something the car can deal with. That can cause damage to your shock absorbers. It can cause damage to a lot of different things. Does that mean I think this person was justified in saying no? I don't really know. I don't know his car. I don't know enough about cars to be able to claim 100% that a single 500-pound person would get in and break the car. I don't know that stuff. That's going to be talked about in the courts, and we'll see what happens. But the idea that being overweight, isn't a disability, it's just being lazy, is not true. If you're overweight, you have disabilities. Whether it is specifically your weight or it's direct causal results of your weight just destroying the rest of your body, you have disabilities. And due to that fact, you are protected by the ADA. Growing up, my father was morbidly obese for most of my life, at least from like high school on. I can't remember earlier on, but my dad's always been a bigger guy. Or he was. He's unfortunately passed away. But I had to watch what it was like. Anytime I had to go out with my father for anything, I had to kind of watch what it was like for my dad to be able to kind of exist in the world. And there were a lot of times where he wouldn't be able to do things. Like, my dad used to be an amazing, phenomenal chef, but the further along in life that he got, the less chance he had to cook because he simply couldn't stand long enough to do it. And then things like going shopping. My dad liked going shopping with my mom and the family. It was a family experience. We used to enjoy going shopping together because he liked spending time with his family. I know, crazy idea. And as his weight and health just got worse and worse, At first, he had to start using a cane, and then even that wasn't enough for him to be able to make it through a single shopping trip. And so things like those little carts in the front of Walmart were really, really essential for my dad just simply being able to go shopping with his family because he simply couldn't do it otherwise. Um, so, yeah, and stuff like that. Again, it comes up with that disabled tax. Yes, now Walmart and a few other stores will offer those carts for free, but there's never any guarantee that there's going to be one charged available for you. And there's never any guarantee that it's actually going to be something that you want to use. If you catch my drift, some of them get pretty nasty. So just simply to be able to go shopping with the family, my dad he had to buy a cane. He had to buy a couple other mobility aids. Luckily, he was a veteran. And so a lot of his mobility aids and things like that were able to be paid through the VA. If you're not familiar with it, that's the Veterans Administration. But the VA has its own problems. And on a fairly regular basis, we would have to make up for what bureaucracy would not allow. Like getting a new cane when the other one broke. Yeah, we can do that for you. It'll be 4 weeks. Really? A month to get a cane that you guys sell in the gift shop. Well, we got to go through this, and you got to go see your doctor to make sure. It's like, no, we'll just buy a damn cane or a walker. I don't think we ever had to go as far as buying a wheelchair. We did have a wheelchair for my father near the end, but I believe that was done by the VA. But it's the disability tax. So going back to the idea, well, if you just take the fork out of your mouth, that's not how obesity works either. And this is something that a lot of people that have never struggled with their weight just don't seem to understand. The root cause of the vast majority of people that struggle with obesity, whether it's just regular obesity or morbid obesity, more so when you start looking at the morbid obesity, has nothing to do with specifically the food that they're eating. A lot of times they eat a similar diet to a lot of other people. The difference comes in how they eat and the motivation behind why they're eating. And then a few other environmental factors, things like, their actual lifestyle and stuff like that. Like my personal lifestyle, I am almost entirely sedentary. I go from my bed to my computer, and that's really about it. I live in a basement, so I don't really get to walk around and move around a whole lot because that's what my brain lets me do. And that's a really, really common thing with most people that have obesity is they have a job or something that requires them to be stationary for long periods of time, whether it's an illness, a job, living situations, whatever it is. They don't get the ability to naturally burn off calories as often as this is other people. Well, if they just start exercising, doesn't actually work that way either. If the reason that they are overeating is psychological in nature, they're using it as a coping method. They may have a compulsion, which is, again, extremely common once you get to the realm of morbid obesity. You can force them to go on as many diets as you want. You can force them to go to the gym every single day. They're not going to lose the weight because it's not the reason that they are overweight is not because they don't exercise or they don't know how or what food they're supposed to be eating. It is because they have a psychological problem that needs to be dealt with. And fun fact, if shame was an effective motivator, there would be no fat people in the world. Every single person that has ever struggled with weight, whether you've just been a little chunky as a kid or whether you've got full-blown morbid obesity, you have been made fun of for it your entire life. Fat people are one of the few groups that it is still not just okay to make fun of, but it is respected because they are evil, they are lazy, they are a drain on the system, so they deserve to feel shame for it. None of that is true, but it's the kind of groupthink mentality that we have all over the world. It's not just an American thing. It's not all over the world. Fat people are looked at as lazy, stupid, drains on society that are just so entitled that they don't understand that they are killing themselves. No, a lot of fat people, 100% know that they are slowly eating themselves to death. Again, I grew up with obesity in my family. I am obese. The only reason that I lost weight this time, I did lose weight when I was in early 20s, like 22, 23. I lost I think it was like 40 pounds in about 6 months because I did exactly what people claim you have to do. I started counting calories. I limited myself to about 2,000 calories a day, and then I worked out 3 to 5 times a week. I did martial arts for about an hour, 3 to 5 times a week. I was in the best shape of my life. I looked amazing. I had more energy than I'd had in the entirety of my life. It was so awesome. I loved it. Then I got into retail management, and it didn't matter what I wanted to do. I gained all the weight back and then some because I simply did not have the time to eat healthy. I did not have the time to work out, and stress makes you hold on to fat like crazy. I eventually got to over 330 pounds, and then I got food poisoning for 2 years. For a period of like 9 months, I couldn't keep enough food down to get more than about 600 to about 1,200 calories a day. For 9 months, I lost over 100 pounds. It was a nightmare, but it did kind of show me. Yeah, I only got down to 230, by the way, so I was still technically obese even after losing a small child worth of weight. But it did show me just how different my life was once I had lost the weight. Like it was incredible. Like I could walk around easier, and it didn't hurt as much to stand up. I've since regained about 40 pounds, but the idea that we'll just don't eat and exercise, it's not how it works. Your body actually doesn't work that way. Fun fact: the reason why diets fail so much is your body is constantly looking for equilibrium. It wants to just chill. And so once you get up to a high weight, for whatever reason, it could just be bad choices, it could be trauma, it could be, like for me, again, when I was working in retail management, like because I lived about 45 minutes away from where I worked, and I was a manager, I was sometimes working, 12-hour days, with an hour and a half to 2 hour commute depending on traffic every day. So by the time I got home, I basically had enough time to maybe make a quick meal. A lot of times I didn't do that. I picked up something on the way home, which is unhealthy. And then because of my anxiety and things like that, I couldn't just go to sleep. And so I would have to find ways to distract myself long enough to get the adrenaline out of my system, to relax, and then I would pass out, and then I'd do the same thing over and over and over again. Even on my days off, I would spend most of them like doing next to nothing because I was so overwhelmed with sensory information and stuff like that. So it wasn't that I didn't want to work out. I wanted to work out. I liked working out. I liked martial arts. I didn't have the energy nor the time to be able to do it anymore. It just wasn't something that I could do. So whatever causes you to get to the higher weight, your brain and the rest of your body will go, this is normal. This is where we like to be. As soon as you start either lowering your caloric intake or increasing the amount of work you're doing, your brain freaks out. It's like, this isn't normal. This isn't what's supposed to happen. And especially when you start limiting your caloric intake. If you see a drop in calories, your brain will go, oh, we're dying. We need to save up as much energy as we possibly can. So it will lower your metabolism, and it will start storing everything it possibly can as fat because it believes that you're starving to death. You can eventually get past that point where you start kind of burning calories more, and that's when you start losing weight. However, going from a higher weight to a lower weight, there have been studies that have shown your metabolism is permanently slowed. So you can eat the exact same thing as someone who's the exact same weight as you, and you will gain weight and they won't. Because once again, your body is this thing of equilibrium, and it's decided this is how I want to be. And so it rearranges your body and mind and metabolism and everything to make it so that this is you, and this is how it's always working back towards this. So even dieting and exercising and stuff like that, if you get down to an acceptable weight, you are still going to have to work 2, 3, 4 times as hard as everybody else in the same weight class to be able to just maintain that weight. You have to eat less than everybody else. You have to work harder than everybody else. It is not just nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. It's not a real thing. That's said by someone that has never actually struggled with obesity. They've just been a little bit chunky and lost like 10 or 15 pounds and felt good about themselves. No, losing 60, 100, 200, 300 pounds is life-changing. It permanently messes with how your body works. So the idea of, well, just take the fork out of your mouth, that won't do anything. It won't make them lose weight. If they went down to eating like 1,000 calories a day, for a little while they'd probably lose, well, especially someone that's in the 500-pound neighborhood. Yeah, you could probably lose 200-300 pounds doing that. Again, I lost over 100 pounds doing that unintentionally. I wasn't trying to lose weight. I was trying to live. My body just didn't like food. But once you get down to that weight, your metabolism is permanently lowered. So unless you want to live the rest of your life eating like a single chicken breast per day, you have to find something different. So yeah, the idea that just lose the weight, it's not that simple. Again, if it's a psychological issue, you can be on every diet in the world. It's not going to change anything. In the same vein that, if you tell an alcoholic, just stop drinking, it's not about the alcohol. It's about the dependency. Alcoholism doesn't work that way. And if your solution to end alcoholism is just stop drinking, it's never going to end. There's a psychological and a chemical component to alcoholism. The same thing is true about obesity. There's a psychological and a chemical component. When you eat stuff you like, you get dopamine. Dopamine is the body's natural reward system. When you do things that your body likes, it gives you a splash of dopamine, which makes you feel really good. And food can give you dopamine. And if you do something enough, you can get your body so used to the dopamine that you can actually go into kind of a version of chemical withdrawal from dopamine specifically. You can get effectively dopamine, or I think they're referred to as habitual addictions. Basically, your body is so used to doing these things that if you don't do them, you actually go through withdrawal symptoms, which anyone that has ever dealt with withdrawal, it is remarkably unpleasant. It is one of the most unpleasant situations you can ever be in. I would not wish withdrawal on my worst enemy. If anyone's wondering, I was on Valium for 2 years. Under the supervision of a psychiatrist, like I wasn't doing it to myself. Every time I took a pill, it was the exact dosage that my doctor had given to me. But Valium and benzodiazepines in general are what's called habit forming. Which means that you can develop a chemical dependency on them. And benzos in general are unique in the fact that Withdrawal from them can be deadly. You can have strokes and seizures and stuff like that. And for a reason nobody understands, a lot of benzo withdrawal symptoms can be permanent. We don't know why. Normally, anything else like alcohol detox, 72 hours, and if you can get through that, the alcohol's out of your system, the chemical dependency is over. For other drugs, it's different depending on drug half-lives and stuff like that, but most drugs that you can form a chemical dependency on, if you can get them out of your system permanently, the withdrawal symptoms go away. Eventually, your body learns to live without it. Doesn't happen with benzos. So I get to deal with withdrawal symptoms for the rest of my life. For 2 years of taking a drug that was prescribed to me by a doctor. A very, very knowledgeable doctor, too. So, yeah. So the idea that just take the fork out of your mouth. Stop eating so much pizza. That's not a real solution to obesity. Some people live in places where healthy foods are either far too expensive for them to afford or simply unavailable. And so they have to eat really, really bad hyper-processed foods and super high caloric foods because they are the foods that are available to them that they can afford. The reason obesity tends to be a larger in prevalence for poor communities than it does for rich communities, one of the reasons is because unhealthy food is cheaper than healthy food across the board. Also, eating more tends to take more out of your checkbook as well, so it can actually keep you in poverty as well. But that's a whole nother story. So yeah, like I said, I was watching this coverage and everyone just going, just take the fork out of your mouth. It's not how it works. It's like, obesity isn't a disability. Yeah, it is. I don't. Well, here I'm going to look specifically since I have a computer here. I'm going to actually look. Just see what it says. All right, so the AI overview. So here, if we actually go to something that's not AI, the vast majority of courts, according to Ogletree.com, I have no idea how reliable it is, but it does fit with what I remember when I actually studied disability law. The vast majority of courts have held that obesity is not a disability under the ADA unless it is caused by an underlying health condition. So just because you are obese does not mean you are disabled because of directly through the Americans with Disability Act, which is where we kind of define what disability is. If you get Social Security disability, it's going to refer to the Americans with Disability Act kind of definitions because they are one and the same with the Social Security disability definitions. So obesity in and of itself is not a disability. However, if you are morbidly obese, you have a disability. I will guarantee it. Bare minimum, you have a mobility disability because your body's just not designed to be able to carry that much weight. So you will have problems walking around. You will probably have problems sitting. You have to get special things like the chair that I sit in here because I bought it when I was 330 pounds. And another fun fact, most chairs, the vast majority of chairs in general, are rated up to 250 pounds. So if you buy an office chair and you're like 250, 255, congratulations. Anything that happens to that office chair is out of warranty because you are too fat to sit in it. Big and tall style chairs can be rated for higher. The kind of standard place where, quote unquote, big and tall chairs start is around 350 pounds. Some go up to 400, and you can get stuff that is rated up to 600, 800 pounds, stuff like that. This particular chair, if I remember correctly, is rated up to either 400 or 450. And I bought it because I was 330 pounds and I wanted a nice, comfortable chair because I spend so much time in front of it. In front of my computer and sitting on this chair. But it cost me a shit ton of money. I'm not going to say how much this chair cost me But I spent almost as much on this chair, or I've spent more on this chair than I've spent on any console purchase ever. Um, I could probably have gotten two really high-end consoles or an okay computer for the amount of money that this chair cost me. That's that disability tax thing again. So yeah, obesity in and itself is not a disability, is not a protected thing under the Americans with Disabilities Act. However, all the results of it are. So whether or not obesity in and of itself is considered a disability is kind of a null point. If you're morbidly obese, you have a disability. Now, as far as this whole lawsuit thing, I'm interested to see where it goes. I can see, as weird as it sounds, I can see both sides of the argument. Because again, I was morbidly obese or pretty damn close to it. I am still regular obese, and have been for the majority of my adult life. Even when I was in really, really good shape, I think I got down to like 205 pounds. And according to BMI, which don't listen to BMI, it's a completely made up arbitrary scale that is worthless. But according to BMI, I was supposed to weigh no more than about 180 pounds. I don't think I could ever weigh 180 pounds. I have really big, thick Swedish bones is what my mom used to call it. We have big, thick Swedish bones. So I am literally big boned. And I have a very large frame as well. Like I'm not just fat. I'm also tall. I'm 6'4", and I have very broad shoulders. I have like broad everything, even without all of the fat on me. It's one of the reasons why when people, I used to tell people, yeah, I weigh 230 pounds. People go, or 330 pounds. People look at me and say, no way. Because my frame is so wide that I don't have this massive gut that's just hanging out and all this fat hanging out. No, it distributed itself pretty well. And there's enough space in here that if I wear the right clothes, I don't look massively overweight. I don't think anyone would consider me in shape in any way, shape, or form. But I look like I have just like a dad bod. And even when I was 330 pounds, I just kind of looked like I had a dad bod, despite the fact that I was, really unhealthy. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about this because it really, really annoys me when, like, what this lawsuit is bringing up is a real problem. Again, obesity is not a choice for the majority of people that struggle with it. It is a symptom of an underlying condition, whether it is psychological trauma, whether it is some sort of compulsion. It can be a symptom of poverty. Like there's a lot of different reasons why someone would become obese. The majority of them have nothing to do with choices that they've actively made. They are byproducts of other things. Does that mean every single fat person is just a victim of circumstance? No, there are lazy fat people in the world. I have no idea if this rapper is one of them. I don't know her. I'm not actually a fan of rap in general. It's not that I think it's bad. I think rap is a phenomenally fascinating music style. And really, really skilled rappers are very, very skilled, and they have an understanding over meter and word choice that is simply astounding. So it's not that I think rap isn't music or something like that, or rap artists aren't real musicians or anything. Not that in any way, shape, or form. Just rap just isn't my thing. So I have no idea if this woman is a good rapper, a bad rapper, or somewhere in between. I have no idea if she's just a lazy, entitled asshole, or she has some kind of underlying condition that contributes to her weight. But the idea that just take the fork out of your mouth is never going to help a single person. That's not how it works. And even if they can somehow find a way to lose the weight, they get to struggle with their weight for the rest of their lives. Your body never recovers. or if it does, it takes decades. I'm actually not 100% certain if the reduced metabolism is a permanent thing, or if, again, because your body likes equilibrium, if you stick with it long enough, your body will eventually learn to metabolize normally. My understanding is if it's not permanent, it's long lasting enough that by the time it is fixed, you're not going to be able to really notice it that much because the rest of your body has changed enough. Like just getting older, your metabolism slows. So it might be that, yeah, in 20 years, your metabolism's fine, but 20 years later, your metabolism is slowed for different reasons. So, yeah. Anyway, interested to hear from you guys. Do you guys have any family members, friends, or anything that struggle with obesity? Have you personally struggled with it? Like I said, if you've never, I've met so many people, and this is another thing that annoys the hell out of me. I've met people that struggle with the exact opposite thing, where their metabolism is so high that it doesn't matter what they eat, they just cannot put on weight. And they would love to put on weight, and they simply can't. And I've seen people go, God, I wish I was like you. I wish I could, do all this stuff. I've had people tell me one of the symptoms of my PTSD, I basically have permanent hypervigilance, meaning my senses are always dialed up to like 300. So like I can hear, like I generally know where everybody in the house is. Not because I'm, spying on them or anything, but anytime somebody moves in this house, I can hear it no matter where I am. I can be upstairs and still tell where everybody in the house is. And that's been true every house that I've lived in for the past, 10 years-ish. My hypervigilance has been real bad for over a decade now. I remember going into my therapist and saying, like, I just can't handle this hypervigilance thing. Is there something you can do about it? She's like, well, what do you mean? It's like, I mean that when I walked into this room, the first thing that I did was I looked for every exit. Where if somebody tries to kill me in this room, where are the places that I can get out the quickest? I know that window doesn't open, and that it's double plated, so breaking through it will require me using that chair. I know that door won't stop bullets, but that wall will slow them down enough that if they hit me, they probably won't kill me. Like, these are the things that, and this wasn't like I go into a room and I start writing notes or anything. This is instant. My brain always thinks that I'm about to die. So I notice everything, every tiny little movement, every little sound. I have a really, really overdeveloped sense of smell. It's weird. Like I can identify people by their scent. It's creepy. But it is a thing, and I've done it my entire life. I know what my dad smells like, my mom, my brother, my sister, everybody. I used to know what my girlfriends smelled like. I identify everyone by scent. And so something happens, like something burns upstairs, I can smell it downstairs. I instantly know what it is, and there's fire. Like I have identified problems in our house simply because that's not how this is supposed to smell. And so I've had people go, God, I wish I had that. That's like a superpower. It's not a superpower. It's overwhelming. I cannot exist in a place without looking at everything that is happening around me. Something shifts in my garbage can, my brain instantly goes, someone's trying to kill you. Hypervigilance is not a superpower. It just fucking sucks. There's no upside to hypervigilance because the information that you're getting is not helpful to you. It is your brain overreacting and giving you so much information that it will literally shut you down. And I've had that happen before when there's been so much going on that I'm just flooded with information. My brain has literally just shut off, and I've lost massive portions of time where I don't remember hours of my life. I have no idea what I did during those hours of my life. I might have just been a vegetable for an hour. I don't know. No one was around me, but we know it happened. Yeah. Anyway, like I said, you guys ever had to deal with obesity specifically or other disabilities? I know I do have some disabled fans, so let people know what it's like. The stuff that they don't understand, how difficult it is. so many able-bodied people, or even disabled people that have never actually dealt with your particular disability, are so uninformed and ignorant of what the realities of living with it are like. Like I heard someone say once, literally, God, I wish I had OCD, then my house would be clean. No, you don't, because OCD isn't fun. OCD is a severe mental disorder that impacts the rest of your life. It's not fun. It's not beneficial. It's not like, oh, I wish my house was this clean. No, the reason it is that clean is you have these rituals that require you to do things in a certain way, or you believe either you will die or people you love will die. Like, that's a really common thing for OCD. So could you imagine going into a room, and as soon as you get in there, someone comes up and places a gun to your temple and says, if you don't clean this spotlessly within 30 seconds, I'm going to kill you and I'm going to kill everybody you love. Could you imagine living every time you go somewhere, that's what happens? That's what it's like to have OCD. It's not, oh, I'm really good at cleaning things. It's, I have a compulsion that I believe extremely bad things will happen unless I do these rituals. And the worst part about OCD is that you can't stop. You want to stop. A lot of times you know that what you're doing doesn't make sense and you just can't stop. There isn't an upside to that. I don't care if you don't like cleaning your house. OCD is not the solution. Hypervigilance is not a great way to remember your way to work. It sucks. Obesity is not, or some sort of eating disorder is not a great way to gain weight. It's not a great way to lose weight. They are psychological disorders that ruin your life. Anyway, like I said, tell your stories in the comments. I'd love more people to find out what living with disabilities is actually like. That's all for me today. I've got a D&D game to run in like 10 minutes, so I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.